The Spanish-American War. A short conflict that changed warfare forever. This wasn't just about territory or politics, it was a brutal test of technology. Modern rifles faced off against outdated weapons, and the results were devastating. The world watched as smokeless powder, bolt-action speed, and magazine capacity decided who lived and who died. Today, we're covering every rifle used in this pivotal war and how they shaped the future of combat. The main American rifle was the Krag-Jorgensen, a bolt-action rifle that fired smokeless powder ammunition. It was smooth, accurate, and reliable but had one fatal flaw: it loaded one round at a time through a side gate instead of using stripper clips. While American soldiers slowly fed rounds into their Krags, Spanish troops were slamming full clips into their Mausers and firing twice as fast. The Krag was a good rifle held back by poor design. The Spanish Mauser Model 1893 dominated this war. It was bolt-action, used smokeless powder, and loaded with 5-round stripper clips in seconds. Spanish soldiers could fire, reload, and fire again before Americans finished reloading their Krags. The Mauser was accurate, produced almost no smoke, and made Spanish positions nearly invisible. After the war, the United States completely redesigned its rifles by copying Mauser features, and this Spanish rifle changed American firearms forever. Some American units still carried the Springfield Model 1873 trapdoor rifle, a single-shot black powder weapon requiring manual reloading after every shot. Soldiers had to open the breech, eject the cartridge, load a new one, close it, and aim again while enemies fired multiple shots, and the black powder created massive smoke clouds that revealed exact positions. The trapdoor was a relic from the Indian Wars and completely outmatched in modern combat. Some American volunteer units received the Remington Lee rifle, a bolt-action weapon with a detachable box magazine that could be swapped in seconds, which was cutting edge for 1898. It fired smokeless powder and was accurate, giving soldiers a serious firepower edge, but supply problems meant only certain volunteer units received them, and the United States had already committed to the Krag. Spanish colonial troops and reserves carried rolling block rifles, single-shot black powder weapons that were sturdy and reliable but painfully slow. Their breech mechanism was strong and simple, popular in the 1870s, but hopelessly outdated by 1898, producing thick smoke and requiring manual reloading after every shot, making them deadly liabilities in open combat. The United States also purchased Winchester Model 1895 lever-action rifles in limited numbers, adapted from commercial sporting rifles and chambered in .30-40 Krag ammunition. They had box magazines, fired smokeless powder, and were fast and reliable, making them popular with volunteer cavalry units in close-range fighting, even though the military preferred bolt actions for durability and range. Spain also fielded the older Mauser Model 1871, a single-shot bolt-action rifle using black powder that loaded one round at a time through the breech, smoother than the trapdoor but still outdated by 1898, producing heavy smoke and firing much slower than the Model 1893, usually issued to rear troops, militias, and garrison forces. Some American units carried the Hotchkiss rifle, a bolt-action weapon with a tubular magazine in the buttstock that fired smokeless powder and held multiple rounds, loaded through the stock and fed forward, an innovative but complex system that was slower to reload than stripper clips and saw limited service with National Guard and volunteer units. The U.S. Navy issued the Lee Navy rifle to sailors and Marines, a bolt-action rifle with a detachable 6-round box magazine firing smokeless .236 Navy ammunition, very advanced for its time with excellent accuracy and fast fire rate, carried by Marines storming beaches in Cuba and the Philippines, but unique ammunition caused supply problems and led to its replacement after the war. Some units used the Springfield Model 1884 trapdoor, an improved version of the 1873 with better sights and minor upgrades, but still a single-shot black powder rifle with slow reloading, heavy smoke, and inferior firepower, usually issued to militias and rear units who could not get Krags. Spain also used Remington rolling block rifles purchased decades earlier from the United States, single-shot weapons chambered in .43 Spanish that were strong and reliable but fatally slow against repeating rifles, commonly used by colonial forces in Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. Limited numbers of Peabody Martini rifles were also used by Spain, especially in the Philippines, single-shot black powder rifles with falling block actions that were simple and rugged but completely outmatched by repeating rifles, mostly carried by colonial troops and local militias. A few American volunteer units still carried old Spencer repeating rifles left over from the Civil War, lever-action weapons with tubular magazines holding 7 rounds, capable of multiple shots but firing outdated rimfire black powder ammunition, ancient by 1898 standards but still better than single-shot rifles, seen rarely among poorly equipped state militias. Some volunteer units carried the Remington Keene rifle, a bolt-action weapon with a tubular magazine beneath the barrel that held multiple rounds and cycled smoothly but used older black powder ammunition, making it less effective than smokeless powder rifles and limited mostly to state troops. Spain also experimented with small numbers of Bergmann rifles, bolt-action rifles with box magazines that were relatively modern but not widely distributed, likely issued only to specialized units or officers due to scarce evidence of battlefield use. Spain acquired limited numbers of Mannlicher rifles from Austria as well, bolt-action rifles using clip-fed magazines similar in concept to the Mauser but different in design, advanced for the time but rare, likely issued to officers or elite units while most Spanish troops relied on the Mauser 1893. Finally, there was a chaotic mix of civilian and irregular weapons used by volunteers and guerrillas on both sides, with American volunteers bringing hunting rifles, surplus arms and personal firearms, the Rough Riders carrying mixed equipment, Spanish guerrillas and local militias using everything from ancient muskets to captured American rifles, and Cuban rebels fighting alongside Americans with outdated Spanish weapons taken over years of conflict, creating no standardization, no consistent ammunition, and wildly different effectiveness, yet proving that in close jungle combat even an old rifle could still kill. The Spanish-American War proved that modern bolt-action rifles using smokeless powder and fast reloading systems dominated the battlefield, and soldiers armed with outdated weapons stood little chance, forcing the United States to redesign its rifles entirely and leading directly to the Springfield M1903, with lessons from this short war reshaping infantry tactics and weapons design for decades, turning the rifles of 1898 into the blueprint for World War I and beyond.